Hello, I'm Joey Corn, and I want to share a little bit about my father's story, but really my part of Dad's story. When Dad died, he left a very rough manuscript that 25 years later, I finally created the time to pick up, to not only edit, but revise, to make the reading flow, and so the reader gets pulled through the story. And I found a publisher. I got it published. A wonderful company. Had a wonderful editor, Suzanne Bill, and and Suzanne just she wanted everything as much as possible in my dad's original words, many of which I had changed. And but the only part she omitted from the book that I had it when I had it prepared was my own part of the story. But this part she left in, and I want to read it to you. This is in the afterword. I was only 19 when I learned that my father was dying of a rare and incurable disease. The doctors couldn't tell us much about the illness. At first, they thought it was tuberculosis, possibly a carryover from his days in concentration camps, but that was soon ruled out. Finally, they called it diffuse pulmonary interstitial fibrosis, simply a description of the symptoms. The doctors didn't know what had caused the disease, nor did they know how to treat it. All they could tell us that he would die of suffocation very soon. What the Nazis couldn't do in over 5 years, fate would take care of in a few short months. I did much thinking in those last few months before my father died. Dad meant more to me than anyone else in the world. I remember sitting in the waiting room at the hospital, 1,000 thoughts racing through my mind. Why is he dying? Why haven't I been closer to him? Why haven't I spent more time with him? Why didn't I go to Israel with him when he wanted me to? Why didn't I learn more about my father? Why? Why? I guess I was as close to my father as the average American teenager, but that just wasn't enough. My father was dying, and my world was collapsing around me. I had been too busy trying to fit in with other teenagers to really get to know my dad. I loved him so much, but I hadn't told him that in years because I was too big for all of that. Now, more than anything, I wanted to tell Dad that I loved him, and I wasn't even sure he would know I was there. I walked into the room. Dad was a pitiful sight. Under an oxygen tent, his body was extremely thin, with tubes sticking in his arms, his chest, and his nose. He had cuts all over from the many biopsies the doctors had performed to study the disease. He was breathing hard, but very little oxygen was getting into his bloodstream. He hadn't responded to us in days. He looked much like he must have looked after liberation from the concentration camps. Merely a shell of a human being. Amazingly, he looked up and he recognized me. "Hello, son," he said meekly. "Hi, Dad," I replied in joy. Joy. Now was my chance, but I couldn't get the words out of my mouth. They were pounding in my consciousness. I love you. I love you. I love you. They stayed locked up inside until I was about to explode. Why couldn't I get them out? Finally, I said it. "I love you, Dad." After all that agonizing, the words seemed so easy to say as they softly left my lips. Those little words can mean so much. He heard and he understood. "I love you too, son," he whispered as he squeezed my hand and looked at me through the transparent wall of the oxygen tent. That moment felt so good. He died a few hours later. There were a million things I had wished I had said to him and done with him. At least I had told him that I loved him. You know, Those three little words can mean so much. You know, we tend to think that, take it for granted that we love our family and they love us and that they know we love them. You know, those three little words can tear down barriers between your children and you, between you and your parents, between you and your siblings. Um, the, there's nothing more important than family. And, and if you have a tough time with your family, you know, just let them know you love them. And as you're growing up with a family, I don't know whether you're young and living with your parents or in whatever situation it is, let your loved ones know that you love them. It doesn't take a Holocaust or anything like that to lose a family member. You could lose your favorite uncle. Many of you know what I'm talking about. You could lose a favorite relative, and you have no idea. It just happens. You could lose your entire family in a flash in a car accident, and you could be left alone. And you never know what's going to happen. Life is so fragile. Tell your loved ones, I love you.